guys, it's Glenn from glenscarcollection.com, and today we're doing a comparison test that I wanted to do since I started my YouTube channel. An Ap1 S2000 versus an Ap2 S2000. We're going to go over visual differences, mechanical differences, drive them back to back, and see which one is best for you. Now the one you're looking at now is an Ap2 S2000. This is actually my actual car. It's a 2004 all stock, and this is my friend's Ap1 S2000 2001, also all stock. They're two different yellows. The one on the left, the Ap1 is Spy Yellow, which you can also get on the first generation NSX. Mine is Rio Yellow Pearl. And I didn't realize till I did this comparison that mine's actually kind of a darker color and the Ap1 is actually a lighter color. So we're going to go over the differences on these cars and then we'll take them out for a spin. Now, Ap1 S2000s made me fall in love with the S2000 with the 9,000 RPM redline, but I've owned three Ap2s. Now, one of the main differences is the wheels. It's 16-inch wheels standard on the Ap1 and 17-inch standard on my Ap2. Now, if you look, the bumpers are different, the emblems are different, the lights are different. There's a lot of differences in these cars that even I didn't realize until we had them side by side. Now, you see I have a different front bumper, bigger Honda symbol, even in the rear. The Ap2s have a bigger Honda symbol. We have a slightly different rear bumper and different tail lights. The Ap1 has the amber on the lights there, again with the 16-inch wheels. There are interior differences too, which we're going to go over in a second. Now look behind my seats, behind the headrest. They're actually painted silver on the Ap2 cars, and they're black on the Ap1 cars. To me, the Ap2 looks better, I'll say visually at this point, without driving them back to back. Those 17-inch wheels really stick out. Now, if you see the exhaust tips, they are round on the Ap1 cars and oval on the Ap2 cars. Here's the interior of the Ap1. It doesn't have the leather console, center console that the Ap2 does. A little different steering wheel and shifter. But they are both addictive to drive, I'll tell you this. Now, I haven't driven an Ap1 since, I don't know how long, that I don't even really remember what it drives like. So that's what's really good about this comparison. We're going to drive them on the exact same roads, the exact same day. I'm going to be driving both cars. Now, the engines are different. So the Ap1 has a 2-liter inline-4, 240 horsepower, 153 foot-pounds of torque. Now, my car, the Ap2, which came out here in model year 2004, has a 2.2 liter, so instead of a 2 liter, still an inline 4, still 240 horsepower, but it has a little more torque, 162 pounds. So basically 9 foot-pounds more of torque, but the VTEC kicks in sooner, though the red line was lowered. And here's a good visual difference between the 16-inch wheels and the 17s. Now, with that lower red line on the Ap2s, the VTEC kicks in sooner. You don't have the fun of the 9,000 RPM. You have about 8,200 RPM, but it is a little more usable around town, where the Ap1 is, again, this first generation. 2000s and 2001s have plastic rear windows. Here's another good look at the exhaust where they're round tips on the Ap1. Biggest visual difference, without going through all these emblems and the lights and the bumpers, is obviously the wheels. That's the difference you can tell. But there are a lot of Ap1's owners that I've seen put on Ap2 wheels on their car. So you kind of see a little different shape to the rear bumper too, besides the oval exhaust tips on the car. Now the Ap2, they try to make the interior a little fancier than the Ap1. So the Ap1 has the black behind the seats here, where my Ap2 car had silver painted seats in the back. So they dressed it up. See the silver behind the seat there, right there? They also try to make it a little fancier in the interior with the door pulls and the door handles and the leather center console and the different cup holder and the speaker. You can see it has the different grab handle there than the Ap1 car does. But who cares what your door handles look like? Who cares what your seat backs look like? What we care about on this channel is how it drives. So what we're going to do is we're going to take them out for a nice full drive, back to back with each other. And who cares what the door handles look like in the bumpers? We're going to see which one is more fun to drive. So let's take it on the roads. I think we'll drive the Ap1 first, because I can't remember the last time I drove an Ap1 S2000, and then I'll finish it with my Ap2 S2000 and give you a conclusion. Remember, if you like what you see on this channel, Like, share, subscribe, share it with your friends. The more views we get, the more cool comparison tests I can do. We are inside the Honda S2000 Ap1. So besides the tachometer going to 9,000 RPM, everything is different here. The coolant temperature, the gas gauge, steering wheel is a little different as well. So it is, there are a lot of differences here, a lot of subtle differences. Though going to 9,000 RPM is certainly not subtle. All right, now I haven't driven an Ap1 in forever. As you know, if you follow the channel, I've owned 3 Ap2s. So let's see which one is better, or the differences between the two. All right, so we can accelerate here. Well, it sure is. One big difference is I get to go out to 9,000 RPM. So that was a huge difference. Now, this is a 2001, so we still have that oversteer in the suspension. Unfortunately, these are 8-year-old tires, so I can't really push it on these cold roads. It's a 40-degree November day, and it's not my car. But doing these turns and spirited drives will definitely tell the differences between the two cars and which one is good for you. Now, there are more Ap1s made. Ap2s to me are a little bit more confident in expiring, and that's why I tend to gravitate those, and I think they look better, honestly, with the 17-inch wheels. Now, one detriment of a 2000 or 2001 is you have the plastic rear window, so behind me I just see a distorted version of my car. Now, this car with brand new tires would be one heck of a driving machine, especially for the money. You gotta watch these cars. They just cut in front of you. Now, the yellows are different too. I always thought my car would be the brighter yellow, but it's not. It's actually the duller yellow. This Spy yellow is also an NSX color, and I think the NSX looks great in the color. Unfortunately, when our great turns are coming up, we're gonna be behind this slow Toyota Corolla. Oh, great, he's getting off. Look at that. That never happens. All right. Very easy to heel toe downshift. Pedals are close together. And again, these cars have electric steering. If you drive it, if you drove my car, you would swear that it has hydraulic steering, but it's really electric. NSX the same way. Very easy to heel toe downshift. I have the top up, so you don't hear the wind noise, but it's going to be very loud in here, especially with the top up. So far, I haven't experienced that oversteer. First time I drove one, believe it or not, I feel it there, actually. There it is. I drove one in New York City, and it was a 2000 year, so same as the 01, essentially. And I was oversteering around in every corner, and it was a driving experience I'll never forget. And being in the Lincoln Tunnel hitting 9,000 RPM, which you couldn't do now because there's speed cameras and you would get a ticket. But back then, this car was ahead of its time. Now, the Ap2, they gave it that 8 or 9 foot-pounds more of torque, horsepower staying the same. When they bumped it from a 2-liter engine to a 2.2, staying at the 240 horsepower. And this was the first, I think, production car that had more than 100 horsepower per liter. And it took 10 years for somebody else to do it, and that was Ferrari in 2010 with the Ferrari 458. So this car to me is always a little ahead of its time. Now, the comparison tests at the time, though the journalist loved acceleration. Yeah, my car definitely kicks in the VTEC sooner than this car. Here the power is like 7 to 9,000, where my car the power is like 6 to 8,000. I believe the VTEC kicks in here, it seems like about 6,800. But this is fun. It does feel, initial impressions, again, I haven't driven one in many years, it feels very similar to my car. I'm gonna get in my car next, and we'll do these exact same roads. But so far, it feels, you know, very similar to my car. I wouldn't say they're two different cars. Like, can you make a case for owning both of them because they're so different? I would say probably not. And I would say the same thing with the NSX, the NA1, NA2. If you want to buy both of these cars or two NSXs for collectability, I certainly get it. Do you want to have both because the driving experiences are different? I don't think they're that much different, maybe 20% different, that it would justify. You're better off getting something else. You like a couple different cars, you know, don't waste your money on two different S2000s. Just get whatever one speaks to you. It's all about revving out these engines. I'm very impressed with the Ap1. I thought, honestly, going into this, it wouldn't be anywhere as good as the Ap2, but it absolutely is. I'm very impressed with this car. Now these are, you know, high revving motor convertible soft tops. So with the top up, you kind of hear all the noise kind of amplified, but you don't get the wind noise, but they're very loud cars inside. So this may not be the best for your significant other. And again, 8-year-old tires, so I got to be careful on these turns. Very easy to heel toe. Seems easier than my car. I don't know if the pedals are closer together. What's great about the S2000 is it's a relatively inexpensive car. You can get a great Ap1 probably 20 to 25. An Ap2 seems to have a higher resale value. They made less of those. They're a little more refined, so they appeal to more people. I think they look better with those 17-inch wheels. And I'm going to be careful so I don't get the oversteer. And those are probably like 30 to 35. I would say probably 10,000 more than your equivalent Ap1 car. So if you want the Ap1, you could certainly save yourself. You could save yourself. That I could do that all day, revving up to 8,000–9,000. You could definitely save yourself 10 grand, and you get, you know, 80 to 90% of that driving experience. All right, so here's a good test. This turn here. See if we get any oversteer. Now the suspensions on these cars are stiff. You hit manhole covers, you're gonna feel it. All right. I didn't get the run on these turns that I wanted to due to slow traffic, but still. This Ap1 has really, really, really impressed me. I didn't think they were this good. Maybe I would have bought an Ap1. It's just so raw. It's definitely a level more raw than my car. You definitely have an extra 1,000 RPM to play with. Now on back roads like this, so the more I was gonna daily drive, and we'll see when I get back in my car, the Ap2 may be better just because you're gonna get into the VTEC sooner. But this is great if it's just like a Saturday, this is a Saturday morning, I'm filming a Saturday or Sunday morning, you could really rip it through the turns, and why not use all of that 9,000 RPM. So we're gonna get in the into the Ap2 in a second and drive these exact same roads, and then at the end I'll make a conclusion. All right, so now we are in the Ap2. So does this look familiar to you? You've seen this car in a bunch of my videos. Now the tachometer, instead of going across the screen to 9,000, it has an 8,000 RPM red line. It's only essentially on half the car, about 2/3 of the car. We have bigger gauges for water temperature and our gas tank. Little fancier in here with chrome. They try to maybe up the interior a little bit. Now the first thing I notice is even at similar RPM, it's quieter in here than the Ap1. So the Ap1 certainly is more raw. If this is, you're going to take your significant other in a date night, you probably want to take your Ap2, not your Ap1. It's probably going to be too loud for them in the Ap1. So this, right off the bat, seems a little more refined. Like it always depends what you compare a car to, right? So if you drive an S2000 compared to like a Boxster, the Boxster feels like a Lexus and this feels like a Lotus, right? But when you compare Ap1 to Ap2, this is about 20% more quiet, I would say, than the Ap1 car. Now we're going to go through those same turns. All right. So I've already talked about the looks. I think with the 17-inch wheels and the revised headlights and bumper, I think the Ap2 S2000 is way better looking than the Ap1. To me, it's more no contest. It's more masculine looking. The Ap1 to me looks more feminine looking. Now, as I'm getting the RPMs up here to about 5,500, you definitely see it's getting louder, but it doesn't sound as loud to me as the Ap1 does. And this guy doesn't signal either. So I have more confidence where I had some lift-off oversteer in the S2000. This is way more confidence inspiring in the turns. I trust this car more, which allows me to drive it faster. If you don't trust the suspension, you won't get the enjoyment out of the car and you won't be able to push it as much. Now, that being said, I think the oversteer in the early Ap1s would be a huge benefit in, say, an autocross or in some really tight roads. All right, let's accelerate. Now, the Ap2 feels a little faster to me. Doing my research at 0 to 60 times, the Ap1 cars are about 0 to 60 in about 6.3 seconds. Because the VTEC kicks in so high, I mean, even to achieve that, you probably got to dump the clutch at around 6,000. I think Car and Driver, one of those magazines, did a test, and a Honda Odyssey minivan beat an Ap1 S2000 certainly off the line, just because the power is so high on that car. Now, when they got to this car with the extra torque and the lower red line and the lower VTEC, more importantly, and different gearing, they were able to achieve a 0 to 60 time of about 5.7 seconds. With the top up, it feels 5.7 seconds. With the top down, it actually feels a little faster than that. And I had a NSX, an NA1 NSX, so the 270 horsepower with the 5-speed. At the same time, I had one of my Ap2 S2000s, and they're both on the books for 0 to 60 times of 5.7 seconds, and honestly, they felt the same. So when I drive an NA1 NSX and I drive this car, they feel the same acceleration. They feel the same speed. So that's a plus. If, the cheapest NSX is 60 to 90,000 now, you could achieve that for a lot less with an Ap2 S2000. All right, so we're gonna do another acceleration. And in isolation, if you don't have faster cars to drive, you'll actually think this car is pretty quick. If you drive a modern car, any new car is going to be crazy fast and will make this car feel slow. This car kind of feels to me that I could drive it all day. I would do a 2 or 3 hour drive in this car more than I would do it in the Ap1. The Ap1 in the short spurt like I did it, driving it for 20-30 minutes, I think is fantastic and probably maybe better than this car because it's more exciting. on a longer drive, I'd be more confident driving this car. I think it's a little bit quieter, and it would just make me want to stay in it longer. But there's no wrong or right answer. Now here's where I think one of the differences is I can take that car, that turn, at a higher speed. I'm just a little more confident in this car. Now, if I already had an AP1, I wouldn't be saving my money for an AP2. I don't think there's that much of a difference between the two cars. That's something probably by doing this comparison, I'm shocked at how similar they are. Like, to me, with the NSXs, it was a pretty big difference. Here, I don't think it's as big of a difference. But either one you pick, I don't think you could go wrong with either. They're both great cars for the money. Like I said, AP1s are probably in that 20 to 25 range. AP2s probably that 30 to 35 range. You know, if you're looking for an investment, then you want a car that's got like under 20,000 miles. But realistically, buy one to drive. As you know the story, if you follow my channel, I had 3 AP2s total. The first one had 9,000 miles. The second one had 11,000 miles. Around 2018 or so, I cashed out, and they were worth about 28,000. I bought them for like 19. One of them, the 9,000 mile car, the 11,000 mile car, a couple years later for low 20s. So I thought I made a killing making, 10 grand or whatever it was. And now those cars are $50,000, $60,000 cars. But honestly, it's not a $50,000, $60,000 driving experience. I think if you got a low mileage car and kept it, you would get 50 or 60 in the future. But when I bought this third one, I wanted either yellow or Laguna Blue. And I wanted a car with at least 30,000 miles so I could drive it. I figure I can put 20,000 miles on this car, and with appreciation, it'll still be worth the same. And honestly, I put 5,000 miles on this car, and it probably has gone up 10 grand since I bought it. In 2 years, which is really, really good. All right, let's hit these twisties again. We'll get a clean run this time, and then I'll give you my conclusion. Now we're loud as we get into those high RPMs. Now, if you want a more comfortable car, then get like a Boxster or something. I mean, if you were going to do long distance cruising or with your significant other, they probably won't be happy in a stiffer car like this that bounces around a lot, that you feel every single bump. But Honda's done a great thing with the electric steering. I mean, BMWs even in the 2011 area had terrible electric steering. It was so lifeless, and they knocked it out of the park, Honda, in their early 2000s, which is amazing. Here's my conclusion, and leave your comments below which one you would choose. So AP1 versus AP2, an argument that has stood the test of time. Or at least for the last 20 years anyway. I am actually shocked at how similar these cars are. There's only about a 10 to 15% different for each car. So if you don't already own one, I would shop for both, all S2000s, and just try to get the most clean, low mileage example you can find. I love my AP2, and I'm not changing anytime soon. I think it's the better looking car. I think it's more usable with the lower red line, and I just trust the suspension a little more. But since I filmed this video, which was a few weeks ago, I can't stop thinking about that AP1 and its 9,000 RPM red line.